Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wa salatu wa salamu ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een amma ba'd. Yesterday, I read some things in the Quran that I thought I would share with you, some reflections. In Surah Al-Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives comparisons between two battles that the Muslims went into. In one battle, the Muslims were significantly outnumbered. They had very few weapons and resources. The journey was quite far. It was about 120 or more kilometers out of Medina. And the other battle was right in Medina, or you can say it at the outskirts of Medina. And the numbers were not too bad. And the odds were in the favor of the Muslims. The first battle, the Battle of Badr, took place in the second year after the migration of the Muslims to Medina. I won't go into the details of the battle, but when they came face to face with the enemy, they discovered that the Muslims had only 313 men. And the people of Quraysh, this army that had been very well financed and stocked and supplied, they had all kinds of weapons, they all had animals to ride on, plenty of supplies. Basically, there was a whole system of investments that was used to gather money for this army through the trade caravans of Mecca. So, very well-equipped army against an army of people who, A, have no training in fighting, B, they have no supplies. Most of them didn't even have swords. Some of them did have swords. The rest of them used whatever they could find and made it into a weapon. They used sticks and things like this. They only had a few horses, only had a few camels to ride. So the Prophet ﷺ spent that night begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for victory. And he continuously read this dua, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum bi rahmatika astaghith. O he who is eternally alive and the one who maintains everything, the one who runs everything, I appeal to your mercy. Bi rahmatika astaghith. I appeal to your mercy. When the Muslims faced the non-Muslims in battle the next morning, it was a tricky circumstance. A lot of miracles appeared on that day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instilled a sense of calm over the Muslims, so much so that they even started getting drowsy and sleepy. They were so calm. And they went in and they won that battle with just a few swords, few horses, not much rest, long journey, outnumbered basically 3-1, and they won this battle. Now, 1 year later, the people of Quraysh came back, and this time they attacked Medina directly. This was the Battle of Uhud. And in this battle, the Muslims were fighting on their home turf. By now, the numbers of the Muslims had grown. Yes, some of the people that had signed up to fight walked away, about 300 or so people, which was a large portion of their army, who were under the influence of Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, the head of the Munafiqeen. They walked out at the last minute, which was a real blow to the morale of the Muslims. But they still had the numbers and the requirements to win this battle. Now, the Prophet ﷺ positioned certain people on top of a hill, and he told them not to move until he gave the command for them to leave that post. Most of you know what happened when they saw that the Muslims got an early victory and the disbelievers had basically left from the field. They had ran away. And the Muslims that were there in the field below this hilltop started collecting the things that those disbelievers had left behind. A lot of those people who were tempted, a lot of people who were on that hill were tempted to come down and go and join everyone else. Their leader, their Amir, told them that, look, you can't. We have very clear instructions not to move. But they moved. And Khalid bin Walid, who at that time was with the disbelievers and had not yet accepted Islam, he used this opportunity to attack from behind from that unattended post. At the conclusion of all of these discussions, the Quran makes a few points. On one side, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ وَأَنْتُمْ أَذِلَّةٌ. Look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped you out at Badr when you were very insignificant. Adillah, you were small in number, weak in strength, you had no organized army, you had nothing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped you and you won. In the Battle of Uhud, the Quran derives many lessons, and one of them was that you have to obey the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, irrespective of whether you see the outcomes or you don't see the outcomes. And the other thing is, when you have clear instructions, then don't argue about it. Don't create a controversy about it. That why should we do this? But what about this? But what about that? Our reasoning says that we should do this, like what happened at that hilltop with those 40 archers that the Prophet ﷺ had placed. They started having this discussion that, well, yeah, we were positioned here because of safety, but now we've already defeated the army, so we don't need permission now to come down. So whenever the Ummah has contradicted, contravened, or broken a clear, direct instruction of their Prophet ﷺ, they have always suffered. And the losses at Uhud were immense. They lost 70 great people. Amongst them was Sayyid al-Shuhada, Hamza radiallahu anhu, and many other amazing people, Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Abu Salama radiallahu anhu, and many other great people. So the losses will always be significant when we don't listen to our Prophet and we start trying to solve things with our own mind, putting aside his instructions and teachings. This was one of the main lessons in the Battle of Uhud. But the Muslims were quick to learn. You see, after this battle, when the Muslims had suffered these losses, the people of Quraysh hadn't given up. They said, right now, we have weakened them. Many of them have died. Many of them are injured. Let's go back and wipe them out. So they had gathered at a nearby place called Hamra al-Asad, which is not too far from Uhud. So someone came to the Muslims and said, Inna an-nasa qad jama'u lakum fakhshawhum. They have regrouped. You should be afraid. But now the Muslims said, no, we've already learned the lesson. We have nothing to be afraid of, and we will not be afraid. So this warning that the Quraysh are coming back to attack you and they're coming back to wipe you out, this warning actually served to fuel their courage and their strength, and their iman went up, and they said, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. Allah is enough for us. We've learned from our errors. We're not going to repeat those mistakes again, and we are ready to face them. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ said, those who fought at Uhud, even if they're injured, no matter what, they are the same ones that will go and face off these people at Hamra al-Asad. We are not going to recruit anyone new. And they said, yes, we will go. So what happened when the people that had regrouped there at Hamra al-Asad, when they found out that these guys are coming back, we haven't taken them out yet, they haven't lost yet, nor are they ready to accept defeat, then they got really scared. So they said, these people seem to have some different kind of strength. So فَانْقَلَبُوا بِنِعْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَفَضْلٍ. So those people ran away. The Muslims went to Hamra al-Asad. By then the kuffar had already left. So another lesson is that we should learn quickly from our mistakes. The price of disobeying Allah and His Rasul is very, very heavy. And if we've ever disobeyed Allah and His Rasul, we should be very quick to learn from that mistake and move forward and try to make up for whatever we have done. Another message here is that we need to be in the mode where we are ready to make up for our previous mistakes. Do something in place of what we did wrong. Do something right in place of what we did wrong. And another message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us is that, look, the losses, sometimes you will win and sometimes you will lose. This was so that the Muslims don't get demoralized. Yes, you suffered some wounds, but look, those people suffered many wounds in the Battle of Badr as well. So it's not about always winning. It's more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking more at how you did it, what you did in the process, what morals and ethics did you adopt, did you follow, and what mistakes did you make along the way. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at, and that's how He judges us. Ultimately, victory and defeat are in the hands of Allah. In the other place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that now that you have learned your lesson, now go and make up for it. Go and pursue them. وَلَا تَهِنُوا فِي ابْتِغَاءِ الْقَوْمِ إِن تَكُونُوا تَأْلَمُونَ فَإِنَّهُمْ يَأْلَمُونَ كَمَا تَأْلَمُونَ. Yes, you might be in pain, you might be hurting right now, but remember, they are also in pain. They're also hurting. And the fact is, وَتَرْجُونَ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَرْجُونَ. You are doing this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have nothing to get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through their actions. So what is it that motivates us? If it's maghfirah, if it's forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's the mercy of Allah, it's the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we should never give up on what is right, because that is always going to be accessible to us. That is always going to be available to us as long as we show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have understood our mistakes and we are ready to make up. So many lessons in Ramadan. Applying all of this to this beautiful month is very simple. Let's look at what mistakes we might have made before this month in our lives, whether it was in relation to school, home, family, our social circles, our akhlaq and mannerisms, our ibadat, our worships, our dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This month is here to give us a chance to undo a lot of the damage that we have done to ourselves over the year or over the past years. But we need to be quick to learn. We can't sit around hoping for things to change and waiting for things to change. We have to initiate the change, just like Sahaba radiallahu anhum. They learned from that mistake very quickly, and right away they went chasing after the enemy, knowing what they had done wrong. We all know that shaitan is our enemy. We all know that we make mistakes, we slip, we forget. Let's not sit around on this for too long. Let's learn quickly from our mistakes and try to win Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure and mercy before this month is over. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq and help us in this process.
Jazakallah khair, Mufti Sahab.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Before talking about Ramadan, I think it's important to know what the purpose is. And the Quran, while it tells us to fast and how to fast, it also tells us about why we fast. So in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. Fasting is not something that is given just to the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, every previous Ummah had fasts that they were prescribed. Now, they weren't all necessarily in Ramadan, they weren't all necessarily for a month, but there was fasting prescribed um, for every ummah that followed any prophet at that time. In fact, if you recall the story of Sayyidah Maryam, the mother of Isa alayhi salam, when she didn't know how to respond to people, she didn't know what she would say when she walks into town with this baby. So the angel simply told her, فَقُولِ إِنِّي نَذَرْتُ لِلرَّحْمَنِ صَوْمًا فَلَنْ أُكَلِّمَ الْيَوْمَ إِنْسِيًّا. Just say that I have pledged to fast today. And in their fast, they had another feature where they wouldn't talk, they wouldn't speak at all. And of course, in our fasting, we can speak and so on and so forth, but we just abstain from food and drink. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that fasting has been prescribed for you like it was prescribed for the people before you, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you gain this quality called piety. You gain this ability to be pious. And piety is a big word. Taqwa is a very big word. It's a very broad theme in the Islamic tradition. It covers a lot of things. It covers the way we think and what we think. It covers what we look at, what we listen to, what we consume. It affects the way we speak. It affects basically every aspect. And the simple definition of taqwa is that it's all of the things that a person does to save themselves from the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all of those things. So fasting, the Quran tells us that fasting builds in us this ability to avoid the displeasure of Allah. So as Muslims, we usually do know, generally speaking, what's right and what's wrong. We generally have an idea of what's good and bad, but we don't always have the ability to do the right thing. And sometimes we get carried away with different things that affect us. It could be our mood, it could be our our inclination, our tendency at that time. There are different things that get us carried away, and then we forget about doing the right thing. Taqwa keeps us grounded to doing the right thing no matter what's going on in our lives. So that's a short summary of how the Quran lays out the objective. Now, someone might ask, what does fasting have to do with this? How does staying hungry all day help me? Well, that's a very important question. And the thing is that there are two parts to our existence. There's the physical part and there's the spiritual part. The physical part of our existence says that I have these needs. I need food, I need rest, I need drink, I need luxury of some sort, I need such and such facility. The spiritual aspect, that's the ruh, the soul that's inside us, that is what causes us to be alive. The soul says, I need to get closer to my creator, because the body has come from the ground, from the soil that we walk on. Adam alayhi salam was created from the clay of this earth. So the needs of this body all come from this earth. But the soul that was put inside has not come from this earth. It has come from above. It has come directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the body's needs are fulfilled by the things of this earth, but the soul's needs are fulfilled by things that come from above, the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The soul sometimes gets into this tussle with the body, where the soul has an inclination to get closer to Allah or to do certain things to please Allah, but then the body comes over and says, oh, I'm lazy, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'd rather do this because it's more enjoyable. So that's our body kind of subduing and pushing down our soul. When we keep away from food and drink for the day, then we give our body the message that, look, I'm going to look after you. I'm not going to hurt you, but I need you to come down a little bit. I need to give time to my soul. I need to give time to my ruh. And I can't do that if I'm constantly feeding you, because you keep getting stronger and stronger and you're not letting my soul do the right thing. So when we stay away from food and drink, and of course we supplement that time with worship, with tilawat of Quran, with the remembrance of Allah, with guarding our gaze and all of these things, then the soul comes up, the spirit gets stronger and stronger, and then we truly become what Allah has created us for. Allah hasn't just created us for eating and drinking and using things in this world. Of course, there are a lot of creatures that are doing that. All the animals and the birds and the fish are doing that already, and the human being would be no different. But there is a much higher objective that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us for. So that's a little insight about fasting. Inshallah, we'll continue this discussion. We're getting very, very close to Ramadan. In fact, we will be going to see the moon, to see the new crescent of Ramadan, inshallah, on Thursday. So let's see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in store for us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring this Ramadan with khair, with mercy, with shifa for all our brothers and sisters and for the people around the world. Brother Fazil, I think you might be muted.
Thank you. I forgot to press the unmute button. We're looking at doing a Quran program where we're reading one juz a day, and the community will broadcast to that community. Can you give us more information about that?
Yeah, inshallah. We'll be doing this at 4 o'clock every day. So that's it's well before before iftar. So at 4 o'clock, we'll have a Zoom session where various teachers from the school will be reciting a portion of a juz. And so this group of teachers, reading a little bit at a time, will complete one juz. So because many people will not be able to listen to live Taraweeh, and they'll be just praying in their homes. So this is an initiative undertaken by some teachers who are generally speaking from our Quran department or even other departments, but they'll be reading a little bit. So you'll get a chance to hear different people from our school read every day between 4 and 5 o'clock. And there will be a Zoom link, just like there is for this. And you just go online and you can have that recitation playing in your homes. You can sit and listen to it. I think it's going to be a wonderful initiative.
So that will be 4 p.m. in the afternoon.
Correct.
Right. Okay. And a number of students and community members have asked about what we're doing for Taraweeh this year. So I mentioned that we won't be having a Taraweeh program in the masjid. And some people were asking, well, can we do Taraweeh online? And I said, I don't think so, but I think you're better placed to answer that question.
Well, just like we don't read any, we don't pray any salat by having a virtual or digital imam. You actually need a physical imam there with you. Similarly, we wouldn't be offering Taraweeh, virtually or digitally. It would not be valid if we had an imam, in front of in front of us on the TV screen leading salat and we're praying behind him. It doesn't work like that. It's not valid.
Right. Well, we're hoping our Quran program every day can provide that connection to Quran, and people can have the Mus'haf open and they can read along with our reciters. So we're looking forward to that.
That's right.
Well, Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, Mufti Sahab, on that enlightenment. It's always good to hear the verses of Quran, and look forward to hearing more about that in the future sessions. Jazakallah khair.
Wa iyyakum. Wa iyyakum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you to all the students for listening as well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Inshallah, we'll make a start. Mufti Asim is not feeling too well today, so I'll run the program today, inshallah. So today I would like to talk about one of the greatest prophets, and that is Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. So Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, he had many tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibtala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put him through many tests. And these were to test his loyalty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he passed all those tests. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him Khalilullah, the friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the tests that he had was the area where he lived and where his father was. His father actually had a job of making idols. And he used to tell his father that, look, oh my father, these idols that you make, you make them out of your own hands. What do you do with them? So the father said that we sell them and, we make money out of them. So this didn't sit well with Ibrahim alayhi salam. How can someone worship something that they actually make with their own hand, and then something that they actually sell for money? And the system at that time was that the bigger idols were more expensive and the smaller ones were cheaper. Just like today, a person might have, a big truck, and someone's got a big truck to move furniture or do something with. Then not everybody has one, and when someone needs one, then they'll go to that person. Can I borrow your van? Can I borrow your truck? Most people have a car that can get them from A to B, but very few people have a truck. So it was more versatile. It's more versatile. So, the big idols that used to get made were more expensive. So what happened was that, the rich people used to buy them. And then people used to go and try and borrow these from these richer people or rent them from these richer people, so that, if they had a big problem, then, we need the bigger idol. And, they would buy the idol that they could afford. So it was a time of idol worship. And this didn't sit with Ibrahim alayhi salam. He believed in Allah. He believed in Tawheed. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the story, when his community went out to a gathering, to an event, to a fair, then, he went and he broke the idols. And when he broke the idols, people were wondering who did this. So what actually happened was that, they started thinking of who could have done this. And they realized that Ibrahim alayhi salam wasn't there. And he talks bad about these idols. It must have been him. So when the investigation was made and people were asked, do you know who did this? They, they didn't give the name of Ibrahim alayhi salam directly, but they said that it could be a man or something, to the extent, it could be a person called Ibrahim. Because just like today, terrorism is regarded as such a big offense. Anyone associated with a terrorist also gets into trouble, also gets investigated. So people wanted to reply in a way that they weren't associated with Ibrahim alayhi salam. Anyway, they determined, they asked him, and he gave his famous replies, well, why don't you ask the idols who did it? Why don't you ask the big one? He's the one that has the axe in his hand, because Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he broke the idols, he left the axe in the hand of the big idol. And they said, well, don't you know the idol can't speak? And he told them, well, what I've been trying to tell you, these idols can't benefit you and can't harm you. And they were stunned. But then after that, they said, this is not right. We have to discipline. We have to take revenge on behalf of our idols. We have to punish the person who did this. And the punishment they had was to throw Ibrahim alayhi salam into the fire. And the throwing of Ibrahim alayhi salam, that incident is actually mentioned in the Quran. And there's some, they made a grand fire. They made a grand plan. The fire was very large. They threw him into the fire, but but you know, what they expected didn't happen. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that He directly ordered the fire, He ordered the fire to be cool and pleasant for Ibrahim alayhi salam. You know, there are not many places in Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a direct order to His creation like that. In fact, the two places I've heard of from the ulama is where He ordered the fire and where He ordered the people of Bani Israel to become monkeys who played around with the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He ordered the fire directly to become cool and pleasant for Ibrahim alayhi salam. And the fire did not harm Ibrahim alayhi salam. It didn't burn a hair on his body. And he was while he was in the fire, he was comfortable because the order of Allah was to be a pleasant atmosphere and environment for him. So this is a story from the Quran, and you know, some people might think, well, you know, Ibrahim alayhi salam, was that 4,000 years ago? Was that 5,000 years ago? How is it relevant to us today? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the Quran to be relevant until the Day of Judgment. So one thing I wanted to mention here is that, you know, no matter whether a story is new or old, if it's true, truth becomes old, doesn't become old. The truth and lessons that come out of this never become old. Just like no one ever complains of the sun becoming old. Oh, you know, the sun's become old. No one complains about the moon being old, the mountain being old. In fact, nobody wants a new sun. Everybody likes the sun they have. So in the same way, these stories, no matter that they are old, they are true, and truth never becomes old. But one thing I really wanted to draw out of this story is that Allah, being Allah, fa'alul lima yurid, He does what He wishes. He could have sent the rain, could have put the fire out, could have sent the wind to put the fire out, could have sent the wind to carry Ibrahim alayhi salam over and above the fire to somewhere else. But He didn't. He let Ibrahim alayhi salam into the fire, and then He made the fire cool and pleasant for Ibrahim alayhi salam. So some very interesting lessons in this for us. Firstly, sometimes in our life, you know, we may be in a situation, a difficulty, an environment which is like a fire. Or, you know, whose situation can be worse than someone who's about to become publicly humiliated, publicly executed, and being thrown into the fire? But Ibrahim alayhi salam, you know, whose situation can be worse than that? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us a lesson that, look, no matter how bad you think your situation is, no matter what you think the situation is, if you follow my order, then that is where the success is. Ibrahim alayhi salam followed the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then another lesson is that, look, even though you might have difficult circumstances in your life, you know, there's a COVID-19 pandemic, there's impact around the world, all sorts of people are suffering in different ways. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us that, look, no matter how difficult you think your situation is, if Allah wants, Allah can make that situation a comfortable and pleasant situation. It's not the situation, it's uncomfortable. It's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it. So in the same way that Ibrahim alayhi salam was given a very, very comfortable place in the fire, in the same way, even though we might have many, many different fires in our life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us comfort. Itmanan, ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub, that listen carefully, that surely that the contentment of the heart is in the remembrance, in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when a person turns to Allah and they turn to the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, maybe their problem doesn't get solved. The fire is still there, but then that problem doesn't harm the person. Just like the fire didn't harm Ibrahim alayhi salam. And the problem doesn't stress the person, just like the fire didn't stress Ibrahim alayhi salam. And that problem doesn't worry the person, like that didn't worry Ibrahim alayhi salam. In fact, what happens is a person becomes content and happy. Even in difficult situations, then a person is content and happy. They know this is the qadr of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. That person that says, Allah is my Rabb, ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا. Conditions will come, difficulties will come. Person remains firm. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says for them, لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. No huzn, no worries, no depression, no stress, and no khawf. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I'll take fear out of their life. They won't be worried about what might happen, and they won't be worried about what has happened. So these are some beautiful teachings from the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He teaches us that we might have fires in our life, we might have difficulties in our life. Every single person has difficulties. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created insan, humankind, in struggle. There's no person who doesn't have struggles. There's no person who doesn't have worries and stresses. It's part of life. So no matter what worries, struggles, stresses, fires we have in our life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us that in that fire, He doesn't even need to get rid of the fire. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have got rid of the fire. But in that fire, Allah can give us the best life, can give us a happy life. مَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا مِنْ ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنْثَى فَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ وَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. That that person who does good deeds, مَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا مِنْ ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنْثَى, whether they are a man or a woman, وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ, provided they have iman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I will give them حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً, beautiful, happy, wonderful life. So good life is not related to the money we have, the things we have, but it's related to amal salih, our actions. Alhamdulillah, this is a wonderful, beautiful month in which we can make good actions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make these good actions a means of us getting closer to Him. And through getting closer to Him, we develop the capacity and the ability to go through life in a content way and face the challenges that come. That will surely come. Life is full of challenges. Inshallah, may Allah give us that tawfiq and understanding and iman to be able to have the courage to go through these challenges. And may we also be inspired from these wonderful stories of the Anbiya alayhi salam. So Jazakallah khair, that's my message today. Got a couple of minutes here. There's a question here. How old was Ibrahim alayhi salam when he destroyed the idols and when he went into the fire? I'm not sure exactly what age. I'll hand it over to you. Maybe you can do some research around that, speak to some ulama. I think he was young, but I don't know his exact age. So there are some other questions there. Was Ibrahim alayhi salam in Babylon at that time? I believe Mufti Saab will be able to answer that question. Inshallah, we can ask him. We can ask him that question. Is there any? Does anybody want to ask any live question? As I'm running the session, it's hard for me to read these questions at the same time, so I'm not able to go through all the questions in the box. If anybody wants to ask a question live, you can raise your hands. So I've got Yunus here.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yunus, what's your question?
What was the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam when he was thrown in the fire?
I believe the dua was Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil wa ni'mal mawla wa ni'mal nasir. That was the dua that he made, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his help.
Thank you, Jazakallah khair.
Yeah. Okay, we'll just take one more question. I've got Talha over here. Or is it someone else? Sorry. Talha, are you there?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How old was Ibrahim's father?
I'm not sure. The Quran refers to him with the name of Azar, but I'm not sure how old he was. One of the things about Quran is that it doesn't give us all the details of all the stories, and the reason why it gives us those details that we can draw important lessons from. So sometimes the Quran does mention that this person was old or this person was young, because there's lessons that we draw from that, like the people of Kahf. They were young people. They were young people, and they left their place to save their iman. So we draw the lesson that look what these youngsters did to save their iman. But I'm sure he would have been middle-aged or I'm not sure what his age was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jazakallah.
Well, yeah. All right, inshallah. So we'll end the session for today. We've reached our time, and inshallah we look forward to more stories from the Quran and increasing our iman. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.